I think it's the 5th time I've come, so I've missed one. But it's a small and very friendly and collegial conference, and what I like as an academic is I can try things out here, I can take risks. I think we've always been encouraged to be quite creative in the way we approach papers at this conference, and that's worked for me. A couple of years ago I did a paper on vampire public relations, and it's since been published, but I don't know any other conference where I might have been brave enough to try such a sort of out there paper. Yes, I'm on a panel with Philip Young, Judy Motion, Joanna Fawkes, and we're playing with this year's theme of entertainment and public relations. And we're looking at public relations work in relation to popular culture. So my own paper is on celebrity public relations and the kind of hidden work behind the scenes that goes on to creating and maintaining celebrity status. So I'm still building on some of the work I've done on popular culture, and this is a new area for me, and it's another opportunity at this conference to try out some new ideas. I actually like the way different meetings of public relations are played with and transformed through popular culture. I don't have issues with, some scholars are a little bit concerned about the negative aspects or representations of public relations and popular culture. I actually think that's the wrong question. I think discourses of public relations are played with and engaged with and transformed very creatively by audiences. So I actually really enjoy very different representations of public relations and popular culture, good and bad. And I don't think we make enough of the kind of ludic and entertainment nature of those representations. So what do I think are the key skills for working in public relations? I think you need curiosity. I think you need a keen and inquiring mind. You want to know what's going on in the world and you want to connect with people. So curiosity, it's a personal skill, it's not a core competency in the same way. Personally, I'm old-fashioned enough to think a love of language and words and writing and being a wordsmith is still really important to succeed in the industry. And I think finding your niche. Public relations is a very generalised profession, so find something that you're passionate about. It might be the not-for-profit sector, it might be sport. Not everybody's going to enjoy working in a consultancy or in an agency or in the corporate world, but a public relations work actually allows you to work almost anywhere.
Fortunately, I don't actually have to think that up. The scientific committee always comes up with such good ideas, and so I would say even this year's program is good enough to last to challenge us for 10 years. So there are many, many ideas that are put out by the organizing committee, and then it's just a question of how well we can connect ourselves, because the curiosity is there, and then we have to satisfy the curiosity. I think that one of the big differences that social media have created for the management of crises is that people who are affected by the crisis can often play a much more dynamic role in getting images, getting video, getting text, and putting it out to the world, where crisis communication for the longest time was organizational centric, and now I think that simply because of the nature of social media, it's going to become increasingly community centric. The people who are offended by the crisis, and that's really what crisis communication should be concerned with, rather than merely the reputation of the organization. I think they have to acknowledge that they really never had the control they thought they did. It's simply because they knew how to deal with media relations and media, and that gave them a false sense of control. But when you think about how activists and other people within the community would talk about an event within their community, that they didn't really have the control, and now it's demonstrated by what the members of a community can put into social media. But it does give the corporation a much better idea of what's being said, so that they can attempt to address it, but not from the corporate point of view, but from the community point of view.
Well, this is a very, very important topic. And I have to tell you, first of all, I'm happy to be here. But secondly, I've been involved in public relations research for 40 years. And over that time, I've seen a lot of trends and shifts, and public relations as a field is a lot different today than it was 40 years ago. Every year these conferences present the current looking at public relations, and this one is really at the cutting edge. This is what's really happening, that social media have really taken over the field of mass media that has been left behind, the old newspaper field. When I started in this business, it was newspapers. I still read a newspaper every day, several, but nobody else does. I'm, one of the few left old newspaper types. So it's going to change the way people think. The way I think was molded by newspapers. The way my children think is not molded by newspapers at all. So, and this conference, focusing on social media, is really, I think, where it's at today in the field of public relations. I think they still aren't very comfortable with the old-fashioned journalists. So, but maybe they feel that it's not so important anymore, and yet they still are concerned about it. But they're working hard to develop their own media and getting that out there. But things are changing rapidly. Advertising isn't what it used to be any more than journalism isn't what it used to be.
6 years ago, we had the dream to bring to Barcelona the top scholars of the public relations discipline, and nowadays that dream is a reality, an absolutely consolidated reality, because we have organizing during these years one of the best conference of our field. We have here people like Bob Heath or Ray Hiebert. They are probably the top scholars of the field, and we feel very, very, very happy to make reality that old dream.
This is a great opportunity to find again in Barcelona a lot of friends and a lot of scholars of public relations, and just for improving the field. I think the Barcelona conference is the 6th edition of it. That means the one after 5 years, and that means a challenger for going further and have a consolidated meeting, a consolidated event on public relations scholarship that is very, very, very important for Barcelona, for Spain, and for improving the research in that field that for the moment in Spain is emerging, but it will be a consolidated one, I think, in some years, in a few years, and thanks in part of Barcelona conference.
This has been a challenging year for us, and what we decided to do was actually challenge the participants. So we talked about developing public relations, but then we set a wish list of what we wanted people to talk about. So we said developing public relations, entertainment, and we've had some very, very good entertainment papers, ethics, because we think this is fundamental at this point in the world. We also asked for innovation, and we had papers in innovation and ethics, and we had papers in pedagogy and teaching, and finally territories. So we're looking at what are the areas that where there are issues, where things are alive, where things are possible. And as we're doing it, almost just before the conference started, Brexit happened, Britain's in disarray, the European Union project is changing, and as I'm talking here, they're still building in Barcelona, they're still growing in Barcelona, and this is an exciting city which brings people here, and I think that this context, this environment is the place to do it. And I think that we challenged our participants this year, and they rose to the challenge magnificently.
I love this conference, and I think actually it's a combination of a whole range of different things. I think the people who come, both the people who organise the conference, but also the scholars who come from around the world, are fantastic, they're engaging, they're open to new ideas. I think what's there not to love about Barcelona as a city? But also it's a great place in terms of creative development and what's happening in the world of public relations as well. And the conference also picks some really stimulating themes and in a sense gives researchers a kind of a license to explore new areas and try out new ideas in a really welcoming, stimulating, friendly environment. Yes, I've been invited to speak about some of the challenges around leadership in public relations, and I guess one of the key themes that I'm going to address is the idea that leadership is an underexplored and under-researched area of public relations, and actually a lot of what we see in the research is more what I would call kind of PR leadership. And that is the sort of PR issues that leaders in the function need to kind of address and deal with. And what I think there needs to be more of is just a general approach and understanding of leadership and the kind of challenges that leaders in all functions have to take on board, and what we can learn from other fields, other ways of looking at leadership, and how that can be applied and contextualised for public relations. I think it just generally represents the complexity of modern disciplines and modern professions. I mean, I like to think of public relations, if you like, as a kind of complex adaptive system. It's taking on new ways of doing things. There's certainly environmental issues around things like the changing communication environment, the expectations and actions and behaviours of stakeholders, the people who are coming into the profession, people who are exiting the profession. And I think if you put all of those things together in a kind of, complex cocktail of different factors, it's not surprising that we get these kind of shifts and changes. But again, coming back to the conference, what I really like about the conference is it represents these kind of diversity of perspectives. I think public relations as both a professional discipline and a field of academic study is incredibly diversified and interesting and challenging, and I think that's reflected in the conference and how it's studied. Well, I think coming back to what I'll be talking about today, one of the areas I'm focusing on is what I would call contextual intelligence. But it's not contextual intelligence in terms of the way that we normally think about contextual intelligence in a public relations setting. That is about understanding the world outside, the actions of stakeholders, the impact that might have on organisations. It's more about contextual intelligence of practitioners understanding the organisational environment in which they work and how that impacts on how they can conduct their practice, whether as an expert in public relations or as a leader of teams or as an organisational leader. So I think again that to me highlights the maturity of the discipline and also it as an area of academic study.